Alright guys, so in this video I'll be talking about The Last of Us Part 2. Again, of course a very controversial video game, and the topic of my last video on it was about why it was hated by one side of players, and there's definitely a lot of people who love this game like myself on the other side. Also there's definitely spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. So from this it's obvious that there's lots of different views of this game, and it's talked about a lot in terms of people despising it with a passion and others adoring it as a masterpiece of a game. So because I did a video explaining why it was hated, I thought I'd also give the side of why people love it. Therefore it's all just an opinion and people have different views. So let's once again just have a conversation in the comments about it all. I know a lot of people always talk about the negative view of the game, but not really the positive side, especially on YouTube anyway. Therefore I thought it would be, fair to do a video on this. If you're going to enjoy this video, then hit that like button down below, and you can of course subscribe to the channel for more gaming videos if you would of course like to. Now, The Last of Us Part 2 is obviously the second game in the series that released 7 years after the first. Of course being a sequel to the amazing experience of The Last of Us, and they had been waiting for it after the initial teaser all the way back in 2016. Then of course in June 2020 The Last of Us Part 2 actually released, with many people on the edge already and uncertain about how it was actually gonna play out or if they will actually like the story because of the major leaks that came out before about the beloved character in the first game of Joel dying. Now for this and many other reasons that I spoke about in my other The Last of Us video on why it's hated, as people finished the game it created a surge of people hating the game, with a lot of drama being made around it that kind of overcasted the positive views of it. There's definitely people that really don't like the game, and it may seem like everyone due to how much talk about the hate that it got. However, it really isn't everyone. I mean, the game literally won Game of the Year. The people that really loved The Last of Us Part 2, I believe, that were the ones that kind of understood the meaning of the story and why certain events took place, whereas the haters of this game just feel like it's all just revenge is not the right thing and it's bad. However, many players, connected truly to the game and its meaning of how actions have consequences in the first game. It's not a happy ending of a game, or even at all. It really is a real mix of emotions that you feel, which did it like no other game. As well as getting the different perspectives across with at the start, as Abby kills Joel, when controlling the character of Ellie, it's very clear that she immediately wants revenge, and the instant hatred is there from the way Abby executed the killing of Ellie's father figure. And the player then wanted to do the same back for revenge. However, we all know that there is a whole new perspective shown straight after this and throughout the game. Therefore, playing as the character of Abby tested the player in making them understand the whole meaning of the different perspectives and why Abby killed Joel, for example. The beloved character of Joel isn't all perfect, and there's many reasonings and wrongdoings that led to his death and all of the chaos. Of course, Abby was a totally new character that we meet very early on, and it was very early when she does kill Joel, after we obviously didn't have any connection to her character at the start, unlike the relationship we already had with Joel from the first game. It's true that both characters did bad things that can be forgiven. The players that dislike the story believe that Joel shouldn't have died, or at least not in that way, but because they love his character and they didn't really see the perspective that the game introduced to the player. Naughty Dog really wanted them to kind of understand the both sides, and it can be seen as this game really is made for everyone, and it is an emotional roller coaster with deep meanings, and people of course have different preferences that the game they pictured just did not come across. But that's just one side, so therefore it doesn't change the fact that it's bad or poorly written because of your opinion. Even though there may be good points as to why players did not enjoy the game, there's the same or other reasons as to why people love it. Instead of keeping Joel alive for the whole game or even more, like the 4 Uncharted games of Nathan Drake, Naughty Dog decided to really make you feel like their father, or father figure should I say, had just been brutally murdered in front of them. Therefore it just creates more of a strong connection towards the main character of Ellie, who, like the players, she felt the exact same way, and we all of us wanted to kind of seek revenge on this Abby person. Like I said earlier though, it isn't all just revenge, and that's not the main story. The story really is how Ellie went through this grief, and where yes, there's many different timelines in the game, which was very different to not only the first game but also any other video game story. Therefore it was a risky take from Naughty Dog. So of course Ellie in the Days of Seattle is basically just a lot of bold and wrong acts from Ellie that progressively build on top of each other and get messier and messier. Then the intertwined flashbacks that show how much has changed in terms of who she is, giving moments of her with Joel, and then the news of when he lied to her about what happened in the hospital in the previous game. So with Joel, he of course did many wrongdoings as well, whilst overcoming the grief of his daughter Sarah and meeting Ellie as well, and now we see Ellie go down the similar route of how she did wrong actions as well that players have seen before. Ellie of course questions after how much she's done so far if the revenge is actually worth it in the end. We as players think the same, once again linking back to that powerful connection we've gained, which looks like it's about to happen, and she'll kind of let Abby live if Ellie gets to keep her friends and keep them safe. But of course that's when we start to see the Abby perspective and going back in the past. Therefore Naughty Dog, they clearly want the player to experience and feel Abby's character and lead up to the end with her hatred for Ellie, giving the meaning that sometimes you can't simply forgive someone for what they have done, and both of the characters of Ellie and Abby felt a similar way when Joel was killed. So it shows that when we go through Abby's perspective in the Days of Seattle, we learn that she is accepting the fact of not really forgiving, and then of course relating to the faction of the Scars. So then we start to kind of feel for Abby then, and then when we see her perspective of what she caused and how her friends were lost, well, because of what she did. So then when we compare the two timelines and play through both, we see how they both pretty much lost themselves. Then the player also experiences all the big characters you meet and them questioning to themselves who they really are, which you also feel for them. Now I also want to talk about the world of The Last of Us and how in the first game it truly gives off a realistic feel of a post-apocalyptic world. The atmosphere just feels so real with the different sound effects of screaming infected from far away in the background and gunshots. It really is detailed, and especially in Seattle when you spend a lot of time in it, and the many abandoned buildings and structures with them being so overgrown, and the weather that is quite varied throughout the game, and it just adds to the certain mood in the different timelines. It just looks incredible, and how much the world you actually see of it, with so many different places you visit along the way, it makes it just so immersive. With although it's a world that is pretty much coming to an end, the world is ending, the vibrancy of the colours and the greenery and the vegetation makes it so just stunning. Although it is a post-apocalyptic scene and everyone is pretty much surviving, it's safe to say that there is a lot more exploration compared to the previous game. Although it is of course not open world, it kind of does feel like that in a way. There's more of open spaces that you can admire at times throughout the game. They certainly took their time with it and put in a lot of effort, which was worth the wait from 2013. Like I've also mentioned within the story, and how there's a lot of planning and careful thought into it, but it just isn't what everybody wanted, I don't think, and it is an emotional story that Naughty Dog didn't plan to disappoint fans with it, and they definitely don't deserve the death threats and the tons of hate they got for it, regardless of how much hard work from the developers that was actually put into the game. I mean, even if the story it wasn't all what you would have liked, I would recommend people to play it anyway, but people just kind of misunderstood the story, and that's kind of what this video was about, and the meaning of it. But that's everything pretty much, I have to say. I feel like I've kind of covered lots of different points as to why people have loved The Last of Us Part 2, and I'm glad I made this video along with the hated side that I did earlier. and why people didn't like the game. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then of course hit that like button down below. I would really appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel if you are new to see more gaming videos if you of course like that. And thank you all so much for watching to the very end as to why The Last of Us Part 2 is loved, and goodbye.